Welcome to the Wounds of the Faithful podcast, brought to you by BSW Ministries. Your host is singer, songwriter, speaker, and domestic violence advocate Diana Winkler. She is passionate about helping survivors in the church heal from domestic violence and abuse and trauma. This podcast is not a substitute for professional counseling or qualified medical help. Now, here is Diana.
Hello, everybody. How are you guys doing? It is hot, hot, hot here. And thank God for air conditioning, right? It has already reached 113 here, and it will be 118 shortly. There is what we call a monsoon season, which we are heading into. That is our tropical storm season. That's the only time we get any rain where we're at, and so we're hoping we get a lot of rain this summer. That's when our humidity shows up, so lots of fun. Now, speaking of fun, I had a birthday recently. It was a milestone birthday. I will let you guess which one it is. Last weekend we spent up at my brother's north of the state, and it's a little bit cooler there. It was 93, and we went hiking around the lakes up there, and we did some off-roading in my brother's Jeep up the mountains, which was really fun, and ate some really good food and had lunch with my father the weekend before that. And today I went to have lunch, actually high tea, with my mom at a tea house here in town. So you might notice that if you're watching this on YouTube that I am in a dressy blouse. So I had just come home from lunch with mom at the tea house and didn't change. Why not share the celebration with you, right? And the tea house was really fun. We had our own little reserved room, and it was decorated with musical instruments and antique furniture and lots of pillows and really good food, desserts, finger sandwiches, the whole, if you've gone to a tea house, all very delicious. And I'm gluten-free, and the best part about it was everything was gluten-free, so I could enjoy it, which that's pretty rare with a tea house. There's not very many that will do that. So had a great time. I was off from work this past week, and I really tried to be resting like I'm supposed to, because I've been really stressed out, and trying to do some things that I've enjoyed, like doing some sewing and I actually bought a coloring book that had the words of Jesus and designs on it, so I actually colored in an adult coloring book. That's fun, right? And let's see, what else did I do? I slept in. I did some music stuff. Just tried to relax and not do a whole lot of work. So I went swimming with my neighbor at her pool, which was very refreshing. Fun to just hang out at the pool, and she's got 2 black labs that are super fun. They jump in the pool and we throw the ball, and that was super fun. So that was my birthday celebration. My most recent newsletter that went out, I put pictures of my vacation up north. So stay in touch with me, sign up for the newsletter. I think that's all the announcements I have right now, except for please pray for my job hunting. I have maybe 2 prospects that could turn into job offers. So if you can pray about that for me, I'd appreciate it. So we do have a podcast to do today, and you're going to enjoy this. Karen Robinson, I'm going to read a little bit about her. I was on her podcast, and we had such a good time that I'm having her on my podcast. So we are both advocates. Here's a little bit about her. Karen Robinson is a service-driven social worker, a therapist, and a coach with 24 years of clinical experience. Karen received her BSW and MSW from the University of Maine, where she's originally from. Karen is a genuine, authentic, compassionate provider. Her specialties are trauma recovery, anxiety, and depression. In her free time, Karen enjoys reading, writing, and spending time with her family. Her podcast is called Heal, Thrive, Dream. Her ministry is a mother-daughter company that includes a wide range of service and products for women recovering from trauma. She offers holistic therapy coaching and virtual group coaching memberships, community service, courses, planners, journals, books, inspirational products, and workbooks. So her website is healthrivedream.com. And she is an amazing person. As you can see, she has a lot of services. So here we go. Here's my interview with Karen Robinson. All right, please welcome Karen Robinson to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I was on your show a little bit back, and we had such a good time that we wanted to talk some more. So I'm having you on my show now.
Yeah, here I am.
And you're in the hot seat.
I'm in the hot seat.
We're going to have a great time. For those that don't know you, we like to talk about some fun things. What do you like to do for fun besides your work? We'll get to that.
So I am an avid reader. I love reading. Prior to working so much, I was reading 3 books a week. Now I'm maybe 1 a week or 1 every 2 weeks, which is still great, I know. So I love reading. I love traveling. That's probably one of my most favorite things to do. And I love spending time with my kiddos. They're a bunch of fun. I love hanging out with them.
And we have a lot in common. We were talking before the show about traveling. I like to travel too, and not going to be able to travel for a while. Also an avid reader. I have this stack of books. Do you have that stack of books that
multiple stacks, actually?
A lot of my reading lately has been my guests. I usually read their books when they're on my show, and then I have my own personal reading list that I'm working on. And I've been a little too busy to do as many books as you have, but I try and read at least 1 book. What are you reading right now?
That's a great question. I'm reading, let me get my Goodreads out because I have 6 going. The biblical book, I usually have 1 biblical book going at every time too. And it's about emotional eating. It's called Full: Food, Jesus, and the Battle for Satisfaction.
Ooh.
Okay, that's good. And it comes with a journal. So I'm reading that. I'm reading A Simplified Life, which is an organizational book by Emily Lay. And then one of my podcast guests, she wrote this book called Breaking the Chains of Transgenerational Trauma. I am reading that. It's a really great, not that trauma is great, but it's a really great recovery from the journey of being a trauma survivor. And I've been a guest contributor to multiple books. And so some of those books I'm working on reading. I just finished Divine Direction, and I have a submission in that book. And there's a book called The Community Book Project, a celebration of personal heroes. And I wrote a story about my husband, and I wrote a story about my aunt in that book. So I'm listening to that. I read a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
Wow. I think this is the last one I read, is Broken and Redeemed. In fact, he came to John Jarman came to Phoenix last month, and so I was able to meet him and help promote his book. So that was really fun.
Oh yeah, really cool.
Now we're going to jump into a little bit about your story. So let's start with your childhood. What was it like for you growing up?
So I think a mixed, a story. There was a lot of dysfunction in my childhood home growing up. There was some domestic violence, child abuse. I had a suicide attempt around the age of 12. Around the age of 14, I ran away from home. And after that, I lived with my aunt and uncle, and I studied really hard in high school and got a full scholarship to university. And I tried to make the most out of the hardships I had as a kid and, young teenager. I always knew I was going to be in a helping profession, and I felt a calling very early in my life. I was one of those kids mediating on the playground. In high school, I was in peer support program, and students offering support, helping kids that were feeling suicidal. I would be on a hotline for them in high school. So I always knew that despite the hardships that I had in my journey, that God was using me to help other people that were also suffering and trying to heal from their childhood or whatever struggles they were going through.
Wow, that's amazing. And you mentioned God. What was your relationship with God at that?
So both of my grandmothers were pretty spiritual. One was Roman Catholic. She was French Canadian, Grammy Lena. And the other grandmother, Grammy Grace, was Pentecostal. So I grew up attending church or mass with either one of them. So it was a very eclectic religious
very
orientation.
interesting.
Yes, it was for sure. And then when after I ran away, I studied with a woman who helped me get more into religious doctrine. So I got my first communion and first confirmation during that time, and was oriented to the Catholic faith more so at that time. Now I consider myself to be non-denominational. But I remember praying after I took the pills for my suicide attempt. I asked God to take me because I didn't want to suffer anymore, the emotional pain that I was having. And I woke up, and so I felt that must mean He wanted me to live. It's not that I heard this clear thing, but I just had this peace, like, okay, well, that didn't work. So it must mean something. So I just had peace about that as well. So I feel like I've been pretty spiritual most of my life. Now, I haven't been actively religious my whole life. In college, I would sometimes go to church, sometimes not. I taught Sunday school a bit in college and a little bit afterwards. But despite how active I am in my religion or spirituality, I always feel God. I always feel Him looking out for me and being there for me. And I know He's there whenever I call upon Him. So that's been pretty cool.
So you think it got really personal when you had your suicide attempt?
Yeah. Because before then, I don't really remember a whole lot other than my grandmother's taking me to church. I was an avid, I prayed more in my childhood than I ever have as an adult. So I find that interesting, that I was pretty faithful with praying. And it's so funny, like now that I've had all these Bible studies and a lot of doctrine and learning, how come I don't pray as much as I did as a child? So that's always curious to me. I wonder how that happened, how I was so devoted so early.
That childlike faith.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that. Yeah.
When we grow up, we kind of lose some of that.
We get busy, I think.
Yeah, we get busy.
We'll have other things get in the way when we shouldn't.
Absolutely. So you got married and you started a family. Was there anything in between there that you wanted to mention?
So I don't, that's kind of a loaded thing about getting married and having a family.
That's a huge question.
Because I have I've been divorced, and I have a child from another marriage, and in between marriages, I adopted a child, and then I remarried my current spouse and hopefully my last spouse in 2012. And then we had a son together. So we have 3 kids. Yeah. So one from a prior marriage, one adopted, and one with my current marriage. So
Well,
I
what
don't
was it
know.
like to adopt a child when you were just by yourself?
A little insane. Yeah. It's one of those God moments again. I was living in Japan. I was a therapist for the federal government in Okinawa, Japan, and I was helping expats and Americans abroad with the adoption process. And my daughter kept saying, well, what about us, Mom? What? And I'm like, are you crazy? I can barely manage you as a single mother, And so, and then one day out of the blue, this woman called me and she said, I want to place my child up for adoption. I'm having problems. And I said, oh, well, I usually help the adoptive parent, like I help with the home study piece and prepping them with training for adoption. I don't have an agency where I can help birth mothers. And then we were talking, and then I said, well, wait a minute. I said, I'll take your baby. And
Wow.
and it was like I was like, who's talking right now? Because wasn't exactly prepared for that. And then 2 weeks later, I had a baby in my arms. 2 weeks
That was
later.
fast.
Yeah, no 9 months pregnancy here for me. 2 weeks later. And so my daughter, Grace, who's named after one of my grandmothers, both girls are named after my grandmothers. They were pretty pivotal in my life. But Grace was born in Japan on a little island called Iwakuni. And she's not Asian though. She's mixed race, mixed ethnicity. Her parents were in the Marine Corps. So that's how we got Gracie. And then once I married and got settled back into the States, my husband also adopted her. So
That's great.
she got readopted in Virginia. Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful. What a great story.
Thank you. We'll keep her. She's 12 now, and she's really testing my limits, but we'll keep her still.
It's at that pivotal age, the roller coaster ride. You just have to hold on until it's over.
Yeah.
I remember when I was 12, I think I probably terrorized my parents too.
It's hard for me to believe that, but okay.
Yeah, you can ask my mom. We just had a long chat at lunch. So so you're all a one big family now, and you don't ever have any problems. Everything is perfect.
Oh,
rainbows and unicorns.
I would never claim that. Everybody would know that's a lie. Just like any family, we have our beautiful moments, our hard moments, but we get through. We're what's the best word? I think we're committed to making it work. That's the most important thing.
That's half the battle. How did you meet your current husband?
Match.com.
Really?
Mm-hmm. At that point, I had been I dated a little bit on Match.com, and it wasn't a very good experience. But as I had faith, and I really wanted a family for my children, that I needed more support. One adult was really difficult. And so when I honed down to what I really wanted in a relationship, what kind of person I wanted, when I got focused on that, I found him immediately. We were a really high match, high 90s. He drives me crazy, but he's very good for me. He's faithful, he's hardworking, he's educated, he's very talented. Really good guy.
I had some really bad experiences on online dating. Some really predatory men, which was really bad. And so I got off the dating websites for a while, and then my now husband Brian, he sent me a link it was Christian dating for free. I didn't even have a profile picture up, but I saw his profile, and it's like, oh, we've got so much in common, and he looks just like an old-fashioned regular guy. And so we started talking back and forth, and then we went to a movie around Thanksgiving, and yeah, we were married within 6 months. We just knew, like, I know it sounds crazy when people say, well, we just knew, but we, like you say, you find somebody that's a really good match, and we enjoy being together. And we both have been married before to abusive people, and so now it's like our home is peaceful, and it's like we don't fight. People don't believe me, we don't fight. But I think that it took us so long to find each other. It's like we're gonna pick and choose what we're gonna get upset over, right?
Mhm.
And we're gonna talk about this as adults. And it's a relationship built on trust and respect and love. And yeah, we're not perfect. We get on each other's nerves.
Mhm.
But like you say, we're committed to waking up each day and serving one another. I think that's a big part of it. We want to please one another. Now, you're a social worker.
Mhm.
What inspired you to be a social worker?
Yeah, it was just a calling early in the playground. I just knew. I don't know if I necessarily knew of social worker at the time. I just knew helping profession. And one of my cousins, who's older than me, was a social worker. And so when I told her I wanted to go to college, I said, I think I want to study sociology and do something to help people. And so that's when I learned she was studying social work in college, because I was in high school. And she told me why she recommended the degree in social work. And so I loved it so much. I got both my bachelor's and my master's in social work, just because with the bachelor's level, you can't do therapy with that. You can do case management and some other things, lots of great things. But with the master's degree, I could be a therapist. And that's one of the draws to the field. But with a degree in social work, you can work anywhere. It's a really great, versatile degree. You can work with any age, any population of people, healthcare, mental health, prisons, churches, corporations, adoption, foster care. I mean, nursing home, the list goes on and on and on. We are useful anywhere where there's people. People need help. We're able to use our skills to help.
That's really interesting. I'm glad you pointed out all those things, because social workers get a bad rap, don't you think? Or
In the
they're
child welfare system,
they're
especially. Yeah.
typecast as this is the only thing we do, is we take children away from their parents, kind of thing.
Mhm.
But that's not the reality of it. There's so much
No,
more to social
right.
work than that.
Right. And it's actually hard to get kids removed from homes too, is the other piece of it, is it has to be proven pretty blatant abuse in most cases. And so thank God for social workers in that sense, and police officers. Like, police officers also get a bad rap, but of course we need them too, to make communities safe. But it's really important that when we look at different professions, we don't stereotype across the board. There are horrible social workers out there for sure. I'm never going to say that we're all wonderful. Just like any profession, we have our stars and the people that are not doing all that they could do to make a difference.
Yeah, I guess it goes with any profession. There's good people and bad. Now you started your ministry with your daughter. Is that right? The ministry that you have now?
Well, our company, we call it a mother-daughter company. And so my daughters, I should say, are on and off helpful. Okay. So I do give them credit where it's due. Like my daughter Grace, when we first came out with physical journals, she did the artwork. and that's what I got embossed into the covers. So she designed that. And she's got a really great eye. And so when I'm designing something, I have her look it over. So she helps with that. And then my older daughter, Lena, has helped me with editing materials. Anytime I write for a book or a blog post, I have her edit. She's working on my podcast show notes. She's reviewing those, making sure the links work and things like that. So they are preferee workers right now. They're young. Like my oldest is just finished her first year in college. And she is pretty cool. She is working at a Girl Scout camp this summer. So she's, guiding and leading young women. I love that about her. And then my daughter Grace is in middle school. So we'll see what they do in the future and how active they are in our work together.
Well, you're starting them off young and training them.
And I want them to be independent women who serve. Serve and make a difference. It's important.
That's great, because I love it.
Thank you.
And in your ministry, and you've had abuse in your past, and you help others to heal from abuse. What has been some of the best ways to heal from abuse from your experience?
It's a really great question. It really is. So I think holistic healing is what I would recommend, which means you're working on your physical health, which is nutrition, exercise, making sure you get proper medical care, lab work, whatever you need to do to be physically healthy. And then mentally, I would recommend people who are survivors, go to therapy, work with a coach for accountability to get your routines in order. I help people with like morning and evening routines to make the bookends of their day. I also recommend spirituality, like how do you honor your higher power? How do you celebrate? What does your spirituality look like? Do you pray? Do you go to church? Do you serve? So I think holistic care is what I recommend. And then treatment modality wise for trauma, I'm very eclectic in my approach. I've been trained on almost every model of therapy there is for trauma. And so I'm not particularly faithful to a model. I'm more faithful to my client and not doing cookie cutter approaches because they're a unique human being. So my therapy usually looks a lot of talking to process, narrative writing to process the trauma. We do some exposure, but in a gentle way to bring down the emotional intensity of their traumas. And we do a lot of thought work. I train them to identify negative thinking patterns, negative core beliefs that do not serve you, that they don't help you be successful, they don't help you feel better, they don't help you in your relationships with others. And I teach people how to replace those thought patterns with healthier, more productive thinking. So that's kind of what I do in a nutshell. It's probably more complicated than that, but in a nutshell.
Well, yeah, we only have, a certain amount of time here. But I think what you mentioned about the mind, it is a huge mind process. It is, of course, broken bones and bruises heal, but to retrain your brain to, one, process the trauma and then think a different way than what you're accustomed to thinking. And I know for myself that I am not a naturally positive person. My husband is. But my mother was not naturally positive. My father was. So it is kind of a dichotomy there. But I've had to retrain my brain. I have to do it every day to choose, how am I going to think about this? Am I going to succumb to the darkness, to the abyss, so to speak, or am I going to climb out of it? I have to choose that every day. It's not perfect. I still sometimes get very negative, or it's pretty much like, okay, the house is flooding and you're standing up on the stairs looking at the flood, and well, the flood's coming and we're gonna die here, so there's nothing I can do.
Doomsday?
It was some other word, but I would probably say it's more doomsday thinking, that we have more power than we think we have to change what's coming or what's happening to us.
That's right.
But my husband is, he says all the time, you can wake up and choose what kind of a attitude you're going to have and what kind of day you're going to have. And we've got family members that no matter what's going on, they're always miserable, or we got friends that they're very negative. And I understand that because I get that way too sometimes. A lot of it is fighting with your mind more than your body for me anyway. I don't know if that was the same way for you, but
I thought so, but maybe because I've been teaching CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, for so long, now I feel it's more body, because as I get older, I'm having a lot more aches and pains and muscle tension. And so, which is trauma related, and naturally growing older is part of that too. And having a sedentary job. And so now it's like, whether I want to exercise or not, I really have to. Otherwise it's a lot of pain. So, so I'm definitely more body focused recently. Working on exercising, getting massages. My husband bought me this massage gun.
The one on the TV with the guy, the model guy.
Well, I don't know if it's the same one, but it's probably a similar concept. And so you can put it any part of your body that's tense, the muscles are tight, and it's just amazing. I'm like so thankful for it.
I'll have to get me one.
I just love the sucker.
Oh, I might have to go get me one now. But I had thought I was getting a stroke because I have a sedentary day job too. We talked about the stress of my job before the show. I had pain in my legs, and I thought I had numbness, and I work out during my lunch break. I walk on the treadmill and I do some stretching and some lifting some weights. But the stress has been brutal, and I thought I was having a stroke. And so I went to my primary care doctor, and he did all the tests. He's been our doctor a long time. And he says, I don't think you're having a stroke or a heart attack. I think it's just the stress level you're under. And he gave me a muscle relaxer, which those muscle relaxers, I could not function the next day. I couldn't get out of bed. So I switched to magnesium. Is that, and magnesium helped a lot more than the muscle relaxer did. At least I could do my job, but definitely feeling my body. There's that mind-body connection right there. Now, do you have a specific story of somebody that you've helped in your ministry? Obviously, don't mention any names, but maybe someone that you've seen come from this point and now she's over here.
So you mean that a lot of work in their healing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A success story.
Yeah, it's really hard though because of the confidentiality piece, so for unique details. But yes, the biggest part of working with someone in the trauma recovery journey is the trust, being an authentic listener, non-judgmental. There's another word I want: genuine, like a genuine person with active listening skills. Most people just really need to be heard. Okay, listening to their story, believing their story, because so many times in life we're not believed, And then, so those are the basics in the relationship. And so I try to do that fairly early, but it does take time to grow that. But I do have lots of survivors. Trauma's tricky, meaning it's not that you go through a course of therapy and then you're done.
Right.
And the reason I say that is because trauma impacts every single area of your life. So I do invite people back for maintenance therapy. Like, okay, maybe you're doing, we do a course of therapy and you're feeling, your mood is level, your coping skills, we've gone through them, you have your coping skills in order, you're ready to graduate. But I also remind them that there may be things that happen that trigger a trauma response, like having a baby for women who've had sex abuse, that can be very triggering, or being in a romantic relationship that goes south, like a breakup or something devastating happens in that, then, it's okay to come back to therapy. So yes, success stories, but honestly, the people who tend to do the best know that they can come back to therapy. They have ongoing support. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you brought that up, that it is a journey and it's not an instantaneous thing. And I can tell from myself that I can look back and see, okay, I was a big hot mess here when I got out of my abuse, but I have come so far. But I still have trigger days. When I first started telling my story, it was really hard.
Of course.
I mean, I would cry or get emotional or my hands shake, the whole stomach in knots kind of thing. I told my story in front of my church, actually. But now I say my story all the time but there are sometimes I'll tell my story and just out of nowhere something hits me and I'll start getting emotional about it without any warning. So that still happens once in a blue moon, but I did get a huge trigger from former father-in-law died, who I was very close to. Now, when I left my ex-husband, I didn't get to say goodbye. They pretty much cut me off as soon as I left my ex-husband. I found out by accident he had died of cancer. And I found out at work on the internet. I had to deal with that at work. I was like crying my eyes out because my ex never told me that he was sick. He didn't tell me he died. I didn't get to go to the funeral. I didn't get to
have closure.
I didn't have any closure. I had to mourn my father-in-law twice. And I was angry. I started thinking all this stupid stuff like, well, maybe I shouldn't have gotten divorced. If I was still married, then I would have been able to be there for my father-in-law and I would have been able to comfort him in his last days and all. You go through this horrible, there's that mindset again. I meet with my mentors. I have my mentors that I talk to still. And they bring me back to planet Earth. You left your ex-husband for a reason. And so I looked up everybody's addresses and I sent cards. I'm like, I'm just going to send a card anyway. The only one that answered back was my mother-in-law. She sent me this really nice thank you card and she was very appreciative of that. And I still have the letter. It's part of my grieving process. So that was one of my triggers. Most days I do very well. You have a lot of resources. I read some of them in your bio. Share with the listeners what resources that you offer.
Sure. Let's start with the free stuff first. So people with any income. So my podcast is free. I don't charge for anyone listening to it. And it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Amazon, all of those. And then I have a free Facebook group. It's for trauma survivors. And then my paid program, I have, one more free thing. I do 15 minutes free consultation to see if I'm a good fit for someone that would like to be coached. I have that service as well. And then my paid offers, I offer a group membership for trauma survivors. It's once a month, once to twice a month. We meet, we do accountability, like habit tracking. We have a theme every month that's related to trauma. And so we work on that theme. There, we have journaling prompts, we have affirmations that we practice every month. And then it's got lots of other resources in there about different treatment modalities. So I have one-on-one coaching. I also have what's called VIP days. And a VIP day is when you hire me between 3 to 5 hours in a block, and we take an issue and we do a deep dive on it. Usually it's cognitive behavioral therapy work. It could be cognitive processing work. But at the end of that block of time, you're going to have an incredible amount of work done, at least a deep dive, because we can focus. You're not being distracted by work. Like the thing about weekly therapy or group one-on-one sessions, you lose focus because you go back to your real life, right? And you get distracted and busy. So the VIP blocks, we do the focused deep work, and then you leave with an action plan on what to work on outside of the session. So those are very, very productive for people. And then if you are in the state of Virginia, I can offer you, I can be a therapist to you. I can take insurance or do private pay. And I'm working on getting licensed in Georgia, DC, and Maryland. So I'll be 4 states. And I think that's, well, and then we offer inspirational products. We have a boutique called HTD, that's Heal, Thrive, Dream, hyphen boutique. And we sell jewelry with affirmations for women, apparel, tote bags, to encourage survivors. It's got really affirmative statements, like to help motivate you and inspire you to live your best life kind of stuff. And then women who are in toxic work environments and want to get out, we sell e-commerce stores to help you get set up if you want to run your own e-commerce store. And we have a full service digital agency to help women set up websites, their social media, email marketing, all that. We offer all of those services as well. That was a lot, I know.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love it. You have so much to offer to help people in whatever manner that they feel comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
Like we already talked about, not everybody heals the same way. And so that's one thing I really like about what you offer is you customize it for people. I know we covered a lot of ground, but is there anything else that you wanted to talk about or say to the audience that we didn't say?
Yeah, I think I really, when I was talking about the holistic care, there's one thing I left out, and it could be argued most important piece is the importance of community support, relationships. So trying not to do your healing on your own. If you're struggling with alcoholism, AA, smart recovery, same with trauma or any kind of mental health issue, there's support groups, there's therapists, there's coaching, there's your chaplain or your people at church. It's really important to be mindful on who you pick to work with and who you associate with, so they're not toxic, negative, abusive, right? But fill your community with people who really care about you, who value you, and that you feel good in that relationship. They hold you accountable. So it's not like they're like, oh, you can do whatever you want whenever, there's no consequence. I don't mean party people. I mean people who are going to hold you accountable for you to work towards being your best self. So that's my wisdom, is try not to do this alone.
Absolutely. When you're going through abuse, a lot of times we feel alone and hopeless. And yeah, you're definitely right. You need to get in a community that supports you to help you through those bad days.
Mhm.
I know the big thing about mending the soul groups, the ladies have said that I've never told anybody my story. I've never told anybody what I was going through. And I thought I was all alone. I didn't think anybody else had gone through this before.
Mhm. Mhm.
But when you're in a group or a community, then you realize, oh, this person went through the same thing I went through.
Yeah.
There's hope because, hey, if she can make it, I can make it. This has been a wonderful conversation. I so enjoyed having you today. Tell folks how to get in touch with you.
Oh, well, I want to say thank you for having me too. It's been a pleasure being here and having this convo. The best way to get me is I have a link that has all my social media and websites, and booking calendar, all that. And it's KarenRobinson360.com. And it has my publications, any articles I've written, the books I've contributed. So everything I have to offer is there. And I invite you to reach out. And if I can do something to help, I'm glad to do it.
Absolutely. Be sure to keep in touch, and God bless you.
And God bless you too, and your audience.
Thank you for listening to the Wounds of the Faithful podcast. If this episode has been helpful to you, please hit the subscribe button and tell a friend. You can connect with us at bswministries.org, where you'll find our blog along with our Facebook, Twitter, and our YouTube channel links. Hope to see you next week.